Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Isis, Imitation of Life. The Goddess Next Door helps a young black girl overcome racism during the era of Jim Crow in this Golden Age Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Imitation of Life in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. In a previous video, I talked about the movie Till. And your Till is another one of what I call these historical horror movies that your Hollywood likes to make, where they take a tragic historical event in black history and then depict it in a graphic fashion where we see a black person tortured. And this type of historical horror movie is meant to be some passively a contribution to talk about black history, but aggressively it is a film that promotes anti-black racism in the fact that you have your racists getting their jollies at seeing a black person suffer on screen, and they get away with this because they call it a historical movie. Now, in my previous video, I talked about how these types of films are just made to exploit black people. And as I learned more about the team that is working on this film, I can clearly see that this film was not meant to be anything but a exploitive vehicle that just is there to push more of what I call a torture porn in the form of a historical horror movie that again promotes anti-black racism. Now, your Till, it is just like The Woman King, a film that Hollywood released back in September. Another, again, one of those historical films that on the surface was supposed to be promoting black history, but when you start to look past the surface, you start to see the anti-black racism going on screen of The Woman King, which tells the story of the Dahomey tribe, which were one of the big traders as related to slavery. Now, your Dahomey tribe is not only the other reason why this film was anti-black. The Woman King was also anti-black because it was trying to push this image of virility and masculinization of the black woman, and they featured your Viola Davis trying to be in the role of a masculine black woman who was out here emasculating black men on screen. Now, your Till is another one of these what I call historical horror movies, and what these movies are designed to do is take periods of black history where a black person has suffered horrific trauma and then present it on screen so that your whites and non-blacks can be entertained by this snuff movie, which is basically set in the dark days of Jim Crow, and they can get to see a black person suffer and die on screen. Now, the way they can make these films is that they avoid dealing with foundational black Americans like myself, because they know that foundational black Americans like myself will refuse to work on these kinds of productions, and those that do work on these types of productions are nothing more than black bootlicks. So, to circumvent any foundational black Americans calling out a lot of the anti-black racism that they want to put in the scripts and the anti-black racism they want to put in the images on screen, what many of your Hollywood producers like to do is go find themselves some non-foundational black American people to go work on these kinds of projects. Now, in the case of The Woman King, what they did was they had two white women who wrote the script, and they worked with a biracial black female director. And in the case of Till, we have a non-foundational black American woman working on this screenplay with two white men. And that should concern all of you brothers and sisters, because if you have a screenplay written by a non FBA black woman, and in this case it's a woman from Nigeria, you have someone who does not know our history and has no connection to our culture and our experience. And we have this Nigerian woman working with two white men on the screenplay. And if you've got two white men working on a screenplay about a sensitive period of black history, then we're not going to get a balanced picture of the whole incident of Emmett Till. No, we're going to definitely get something that fits the narrative of white supremacists who will go out of their way to do things like give your Carolyn Donham a pass, even though there have been alleged reports that say that she was the one who instigated the murder of Emmett Till, and others that say that she orchestrated the murder of Emmett Till. So when I see that you've got a Nigerian woman and two white men working on this script, that's a red flag for me. And when I see that you've got three screenwriters and not one of them is a foundational black American, and they're working on a screenplay about a story of a black person in black history, then that's really making me think that there's going to be problems with the credibility as related to this script, because the story of Emmett Till is a story that needs to be handled by a screenwriter like myself, who is a foundational black American and knows black culture and the black experience, and can go in depth on all of the racism that went on at that time, and show people a clear picture of the kind of insidious racism that led to the murder of Emmett Till. And I believe we're not gonna get that if you've got two white men and a Nigerian woman working on the screenplay. So that's one red flag for me as related to this Till movie. The other red flag for me is that you have a director who again is a non-foundational black American woman. So if you have somebody who is not a foundational black American, they're not going to handle this material with care, and they're not going to really go out here and understand why the story is so important, because they're all about pushing the agenda of the white supremacist in the media arm that they work for. Now, I would feel a bit more comfortable if this film were written by a black screenwriter like myself, or a director like Sally Richardson Whitfield, who I believe would have handled this material very sensitively. But when I start to see your non-blacks as a part of the project, then I know that this film is going to follow the exact same pattern as The Woman King. Now, The Woman King, again, was one of those historical horror movies that, again, was about putting all of this violence and gore on screen, and then also going out of its way to masculinize the black woman, and again, pushing agendas that the white supremacists want to see. And that's one of the things that I believe is going to happen here with the whole film of Till, which is really got a heavy focus from what I've seen as the trailer on Emmett Till's mother, and that gynocentric perspective is another red flag for me, because what Hollywood has been trying to do for the last couple of films, like The Woman King, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and now this movie, Till, is they have been trying to push narratives towards the black woman, and they have been trying to push these black woman empowerment narratives, and trying to make it where they go out here and minimize the black man, marginalize the black man,
devalue the black man. So I'm seeing a major red flag with this Till movie. And from what I'm hearing, this movie, again, having this focus on Emmett Till's mother and not talking about things like how his father lost his life. I mean, these are key components to Emmett Till's story. I mean, these are things that need to have been a part of the film. And in the trailer, they were talking about Emmett Till being small before she sends him off to Mississippi. And again, these are anti-black messages inside of a film about one of the most tragic people to endure the suffering as related to Jim Crow, because the way Emmett Till lost his life was horrible. I mean, this boy was tortured. He had an eye, his eyes taken out. He was castrated. I mean, and then they threw him in the river. And again, what your Hollywood loves to do, like in movies like Precious and Monsters Ball, and they like to show all of the gore and the details. And again, they want to make a Emmett Till movie that is the equivalent of Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, but because they have a historical context, what they want to do is say, oh, this is all about we're making a commentary on a period in history passively, but aggressively, we've got a bunch of white racists getting their jollies as they go out here and film a cinematic lynching. And that is the thing that disgusts me the most about Till, is that most black people will sit there and say, oh, we need these kinds of movies. No, we don't need the what Hollywood is doing right now, which is either they're doing a poverty porn movie like Precious and Monsters Ball, or they do these historical horror movies like your Woman King, or your Till, or your Will Smith's upcoming Emancipation. It's always them trying to show a black person being suffering, a black person being tortured, a black person being beaten and suffering. I mean, it's always that the Hollywood makes these kinds of films, and what really disgusts me is they go out here and celebrate our pain and suffering by going out here and nominating these films for Oscars and then rewarding themselves for filming our pain and our suffering. And again, they make these kinds of historical horror movies, but won't go out here and give us the tangible of justice by seeing that Carolyn Donham, one of the last of the alleged suspects in the murder of Emmett Till, be brought to justice. So you want to make a movie about Emmett Till, and then you don't even want foundational black Americans working on the project. Again, slaps in the face to foundational black Americans that the screenwriters aren't even foundational black Americans. The director isn't a foundational black American, and nobody on this film outside of maybe an actor or two is foundational black American. And again, the racists in Hollywood get away with this because they know that they couldn't get a foundational black American to participate in this type of film because it exploits black people, and it just is made to degrade the black image, and it's made so that, again, your white racists can go out here and have their kind of entertainment, like lynching and torturing black people, and say it's all part of making a historical film. I mean, just show us how evil there are people in Hollywood are as related to the image of foundational black Americans. And one of the things I'm glad I'm seeing with foundational black Americans is that we are waking up to these kinds of movies as I look at the box office for The Woman King, because most black folks stayed home, and that led to this movie bombing at the box office. And the arguments that people tried to push that we need to watch these kind of movies for our history, and if we don't support a film with a black woman in it, no one else will make more films. People are finally seeing through that bullshit, and what they're doing is keeping their money in their pocket and understanding there are intangibles worth far more than going out here and seeing these movies, which again are not about educating you about the horrors of what happened to Emmett Till. You can learn about that in documentaries like Eyes on the Prize, which is on the streaming services, or you can go out here and go find DVDs of Eyes on the Prize and learn all about Emmett Till and the tragedy that happened to Emmett Till. You can go out here and find out all of that information from others out here, and you don't need to go out here and give money to these producers in Hollywood for a movie that they would about a historical figure from us that they didn't even have the courage to go out here and hire us to do, because they don't respect us as a people. And since they could not bring any foundational black Americans to be a part of this project, then we need to keep our black dollars in our pocket, and we need to send a message that we are not going to be out here supporting these historical horror movies that are nothing more than torture porn that allow white racists to get their jollies. No, we want to see more balanced, humanized images of black people. And if you want to do historical films, you can do them about people who have made great contributions to our society. And you can go out here and start talking about some of the more positive people that are out here, like the late Dwayne McDuffie. I mean, you could talk about him. There are many other black people you could talk about and make movies of, and we could make way better movies about positive black people and positive stories about the black experience. And I believe it's time for black people to stop watching this kind of stuff, because this kind of media is toxic. This type of media has an impact on our mental health. And if you keep watching images of black people being beaten, humiliated, and degraded, it's going to affect the way you see yourself. And that's why these historical horror movies are just bad for black people, because they show people dehumanizing us, and they show that it's okay to dehumanize a black person, because they make it think that, oh, it's okay to take away a black person's dignity, a black person's self-respect. I mean, this is all entertainment for them. But no, we've got to start pushing back on this kind of media, because this kind of media is nothing more than anti-black racism. And we can do better and tell different kinds of stories, because if I can go out here and tell stories about ancient Egypt with black people in it, I can tell stories during Jim Crow and show you all of the black businesses in them, like ISIS Imitation of Life. I mean, if I can show you positive stories about black history and show you how the world was, and there were good parts of the black community and the black experience, and not just keep showing you black people suffering, then Hollywood can go out here and show you a world of black people where black people are doing all right, and show us the human side of black people. And if I can show the humanity of black people in my stories, then I know your Hollywood could do the same thing. But your Hollywood doesn't want to do that, because they're the media arm of white supremacy. And the media arm of white supremacy is about pushing anti-black racism, and they're about pushing anti-black man misandry. And these types of films, again, they only get made these days because they know foundational black Americans like myself will have nothing to do with these projects. So when they can't get a black bootlick to go out here and do their dirty work, what they do is go out here and get some non-foundational foreign black person, and they get that foreign black person to do the dirty work, because they see foundational black Americans as less than, and they see foundational black American culture as just another culture, and they use their cultural indifference to go out here and be able to make the films the way the white supremacists want them made, because again, they know that the foundational black American will push back as related to certain stories, certain narratives, certain viewpoints. And if there were black executives who were working at these studios who were foundational black Americans, then you would definitely see a different kind of content. Because if somebody like Bill Cosby were to have actually bought NBC, I know we would have seen a completely different perspective of black media and black culture. And again, your white racists know that an FBA is somebody who is going to push back against them. So they go out here and they either get one of these biracial bootlicks, these black bootlicks, or these non-FBAs who will go along to get along, and they'll go out here and make these historical horror movies and hope to get their name out there and hope to celebrate our misery and celebrate our suffering and call it entertainment. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can donate to my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, you can do so by picking up my books like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Smith-Sorrella trilogy. You can find all those books on Amazon.com, along with E-Steam, The Sands of Time, and ISIS, Imitation of Life. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and